Hi, this is lesson 8. We're going to start on page 69 with verb and plus preposition. Number 1. We succeeded in finding a room for the night. Number 2. He stared at the receptionist in surprise. Number 3. The guest complained about everything in the hotel. Number 4. I object to sharing my room with a stranger. 5. You can't depend on planes to be on time. 6. Please excuse me for disturbing you. Part 2. Famous for. 2. Interested in. 3. Proud of. 4. Different from. 5. Sorry about. 6. Bored with. 7. Satisfied with. 8. Nervous about. Okay, and then part 3. Number 1, I have a good relationship with my parents. Number 2, thanks for your help. Number 3, there's been a huge increase in tourism in that area. Number 4, congratulations for winning the prize. Number 5, this cream offers complete protection against sunburn. Number 6, that airline company has an excellent reputation for safety. Number 7, I would like more advice about eco-holidays. 8, our guide is an expert on birds. All right, and now fill in the gaps with the multiple choice. Watch that tiger. Last year I did something I had been dreaming of for ages. I took a month off work and booked a flight for India. I set for the Kaziranga National Park, which is famous for its rhinos. A friend had described the wildlife that lives in this park. When he listed the animals you could see, I accused him of exaggerating. Then he showed me the photos. After that, I could talk about nothing but my trip to India. I spent all my savings on the plane ticket. I stayed at a forest lodge, a relaxed sort of hotel, along with many other holiday makers. On the first morning, I and my fellow guests joked about seeing buffalo and tigers behind every bush. We spent the morning riding through the park on elephants. We had marvelous views of buffalo and rhino. In the afternoon, our guide offered to take us out again in his jeep. He stopped by a lake so we could take photos of some deer. There's a tiger, someone whispered. Don't be silly, we shouted at her. Our guide had warned us that there was no chance of seeing a tiger. But the woman was right. The tiger was lying in the long grass staring at us. We could hardly believe our luck. We were just deciding on the best place to stand to take photographs when the tiger attacked. And I can't believe they left it hanging like that. I want to know what happened. Okay, we've got a reading. Art of Ancient Times. Tom Barber went to Africa in search of some very ancient paintings. I had to come to this mountainous part of Africa hoping to see ancient cave art, and here I was looking at a series of caves in the face of the rock. The caves were neither deep nor dark and were well lit by the morning sun, but I was having trouble finding any of the paintings that the guidebook described. I looked down at the red dotted line on the hand-drawn map in the book. Nearby, on a rock, a footstep marked in white paint told me I was on the right track, but not how far I was along it. And the gap here's filled with, I thought I was at the place the map called Site 5, but in that case I should be seeing a painting of a quagga, a strange animal, half horse, half zebra. Looking back at the cliff, there was no sign of the picture I was supposed to be seeing, so I turned back to the guidebook. When you've finished your study of these remarkable walls, it stated, turn to the left-hand part of the cave. You will immediately catch sight of an exceptionally clear and delightfully painted hunting scene. I looked to my left. Nothing. But as I looked more carefully, I started to make out a few shapes. And the answer to this gap is G. Binoculars brought these into sharper focus, and there indeed were the yellows and reds of ancient art, and I could see people chasing horned animals. The images were faint, and they faded into natural stains on the rock. But it was ancient art, and I'd found it. It looked nothing like the illustrations in the guidebook, but I didn't mind. The search had given me an excuse to stop and take in the natural beauty of the mountains. I continued walking. After 50 meters, I spotted another white painted footstep on the rock. 2. This one's filled in with A. I had apparently reached Site 5, for there in front of me was a rather badly drawn quagga. This image, like the paintings of the hunters, was a magical link between the vanished Bushman culture and the wild beauty of the present day. I felt thrilled. Here I was on a little-known trail, guiding myself through the countryside with the help of a small guidebook, seeing some of the Southern Africa's finest rock art. And then here goes F. And what's more, I was doing it alone, a fact that made the experience unique for me. I have seen rock art when locals have shown me sites, and I have also been led around famous sites by bored professional guides, but I have never had the chance of exploring an open-air rock gallery on my own. I was free to make my own discoveries. And amongst these discoveries, the most impressive were a picture of a group sitting around a fire, painted in black, and a picture of a crowd scene, all heads turning towards the sky. And this sentence here is, best of all, though, there were red handprints, including the tiny prints of a child, that spoke out to me across the centuries and across cultures. They reminded me so much of the paintings I did as a child. All of this in one of South Africa's last frontiers, a semi-desert with dirt roads and cowboys in pickup trucks. If it rains in these mountains, August and September are very colorful as flowers cover the rocky ground. But this does not happen every year. E. The art, on the other hand, is always there. Although the marked trail continued, I decided to go back the way I'd come. It was not to be, however. Almost immediately I lost the path. The painted footsteps that had guided me so far were perhaps easier to spot from the intended direction. 6. Unworried, I climbed across rocks and fought my way through bushes to make a track of my own, following the riverbed back to the starting point of my walk. This was the only place in the world where the rooibos bush used to make tea will grow. I'd bought fresh tea in the nearby mountain town that morning, and now I was looking forward to it. All right. And we're going to finish the lesson with page 72, modal verbs. Number 1, it's important that we all work together to save our planet. We must all work together to save our planet. Number 2, The tourists were wrong to leave rubbish about. The tourists shouldn't have left rubbish about. Number 3, those children should do what the guide tells them. Those children ought to do what the guide tells them. Number 4, it wasn't necessary to cut down all those trees, but they did. They needn't have cut down all those trees. Number 5, it was wrong of the men to hunt the animals. The men shouldn't have hunted the animals. Number 6, it isn't necessary to build a new road. They needn't build a new road. Number 7, it was possible for us to stop tourists coming to our island, but we didn't. We could have stopped tourists from coming, but we didn't, to our island, but we didn't. 8, we aren't doing enough to protect wildlife. We should be doing more to protect wildlife. Part 2, extra word. I'll read the sentences without the extra word. We should take more care of our world. Number 2, developers ought not to have so many hotels. Number 3, the tourist needn't have disturbed the beaches where the birds were nesting. 4, we could have done more to save the rainforests from destruction. 5, the holiday company ought not to have advised customers to go to that resort. 6, on our last holiday, we didn't need to organize our own accommodation. 7, we should all do more to save endangered species. 8, they ought not to allow travel companies to overbook resorts. And then last exercise 3, transformations. Number 1, they were forced to close the safari park. They had to close the safari park. 2, it wasn't necessary for the tourists to walk through the forest, but they did. The tourists needn't have walked through the forest, but they did. 3, we aren't doing enough to help endangered animals. We should be doing more to help endangered animals. 4, the children were climbing the trees, which was wrong. The children ought not to have been climbing the trees. 5, it isn't necessary for them to build a new road. They have not got to build a new road. 6, it is essential for us to regulate tourism more carefully. We must regulate tourism more carefully. 7, it was wrong of you to pick those flowers. You shouldn't have picked those flowers. 8, it is important to protect those beaches. We need to protect those beaches. 9, we didn't do enough for wildlife in the past. We could have done more for wildlife in the past. Number 10, it wasn't necessary to cut down the forest. They needn't have cut down the forest. Okay, we're done.